Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining us for today's webinar. Just give us a few seconds whilst we get all of the technical aspects set and we have a couple more people joining us. First of all, let's do a sound check. Can I get a couple of you just in the chat box to let me know whether you can hear or if there's any particular issues with your audio? No, excellent, great, thank you, thanks very much. Yep, it would seem that we've got everything's in order. So once again, thanks for joining us in today's session. We're going to be talking specifically about social media technologies for business intelligence. And whilst this is a rather broad topic, we're going to be touching on the aspects and benefits in times of crisis, general security, travel, and of course, emergency, using social media and specific technologies. Social media has really become the hot topic, not only for the past 12 months, 18 months, but certainly moving forward over the next 6 to 12 months. Everybody's talking about it. Everybody's claiming to be an expert. There's every tool for every solution, and there really is a plethora of choice as well as overwhelming information available for individuals and organizations. So it also comes down to a lot of personal choice. The reality of social networks is, both from the embryonic stage as well as those that are the most developed and been around for a while, is it does depend on location, demographics, genders, age, and the type of content in which you're sharing or those that you consume. And there's a difference between social media for business and for pleasure. So as you can see on the left-hand side, some of the Facebook demographics for males compared to females, YouTube consumption, females, Twitter, males. There's a significant gap if you look at the aspects of LinkedIn between males, for example. Females have a greater percentage of use of and consumption of Twitter, and more males use YouTube in this particular demographic, in which this was collected from a UK-based demographic. Now, if we look at this a little bit wider in terms of the small business applications, again, a lot of businesses have been quite slow to either embrace or understand or implement social media practices, let alone the tools and formalization of social media. For many, it still remains somewhat of an ad hoc or marketing exclusively driven process. So again, based on US users, we see large demographic representation in things like LinkedIn, Facebook. MySpace has certainly decreased over the years, and certainly Twitter is quite popular, and most people know what it is, even if they don't necessarily use it on a frequent basis. And as I said earlier, the demographics vary in terms of the distribution of age groups. There are the generation X, Ys, and so on that have certain preferences, but there's also a number of misnomers in the fact that all demographics are increasingly moving towards videos as being quite popular, yet very few organizations embrace it or understand it or use it as part of their distribution, whether it be a public broadcast channel or whether it be a discrete internal communication tool. And certainly as we start to identify what has faded in and what has faded out, this would be a very different conversation if held a few years ago or several years ago, the difference between Facebook and MySpace. And the reality is that this is likely to continue in terms of trends. What is today's hot topic was yesterday's up and coming, and what is today's popular may be tossed to the curb. So a lot of people and organizations need to constantly be aware of how these things are evolving, because it can be quite a fickle process where taste, abilities, functionality, and sizes of audiences change on a regular basis. So this is something to note for organizations. It's not too late. It's not something that the ship has sailed, but you also need to be wary of where growing trends are emerging. And this is true for all aspects, particularly if we look at the mobile platforms. We've got the iPhone platforms, we've got Android up and coming, the Windows mobile version. Things constantly change, and in no more is this acutely felt is certainly within the social media space. And the reality is that the speed of light is often associated and is a real reality with social media, good, bad, or otherwise. Social media can be much like fire. It can be a very useful tool. It can be used to heat and cook and all those sorts of domestic tasks, but it can also burn your house down. And this is what a lot of organisations are finding out too late when it comes to either their ignorance of social media, their lack of aptitude, their lack of integration. They really don't understand that what happens in Vegas stays on YouTube. And certainly that's what we're going to be discussing and talking about here. Now, one of the last things to note is not only is it cultural aspects and age demographics and gender and so on, it's also regional preferences. So in the Asia Pacific region, you'll see Baidu being used, and Renin and Cyworld and Wrench and a number of others that have preferences in certain demographics. And this is universal again throughout the world. Some areas are accessible. Some mobile phone carriers offer Facebook, Twitter and Foursquare free and available to some users. In other demographics they don't. Sometimes they don't even have mobile phones that are as prolific. They're desktop users. So again, this can change, but all the more complex for international operations and international managers of information and communicators is to be at least aware of all these nuances and all of these variations, not necessarily engaging and having resources for all of them, but certainly picking and choosing and putting it within context of the organisation and or your requirements. Just to round out, there's only 3 types of information: lies, damn lies and statistics. Here's some statistics. As you can see, when it comes to social networking use by demographic, you can see that it's a constant growing trend. And it's not just all the 18 to 29-year-olds. One of the fastest growing demographics are those in the older age groups from the 30s to 60s, as they take to, or they have more time available to understand and play with some of these tools. And it's increasing. Some of the other aspects is that not only is their use increasing, but also their frequency of use. Therefore, based on this particular survey, it identified that who has ever used it and who used it within the last 24 to 48 hours. And again, it's increasing. So it's not just something that the old internet usage was, well, maybe once a week I'll get on and I'll look at some emails, or I'll do this or I'll do that. The reality is that social networking is increasingly one of those daily or hourly processes which a lot of people are engaged in, not just news services. And for those who simply don't understand the process, it's extremely cost effective. In terms of the volume and the distribution, the message transfer and the channels available, it's extremely cost effective, with many organisations now ditching their more traditional marketing budgets and their spends and their distribution channels and moving to social media, with much of it being free or far more cost effective by comparison to Super Bowl commercials, by comparison to global marketing campaigns, by comparison to TV and radio and print. Social media is extremely cost effective for both users and consumers. Whereas before, one message before communicated between individuals meant that maybe you got a reach of 3 to 4 to 5 people and they told a few of their friends as well. The message was slow, it was often watered down, it was diluted, and as a result you really didn't impact that many people. However, with the introduction of social media and the inclusion of all of these channels, you've now got an ability to communicate and distribute across multiple channels and multiple preferences, all with the same agenda or interest, and they then too can forward it on to their friends, whether it be retweets or liking or sharing and RSS feeds and a whole host of other multipliers. The message can be gotten out to the rest of the world much, much more efficiently and certainly far more viral or broader demographic. And certainly, as we've seen, everything from movie clips to news clips to funny things with kittens. These things can go viral very, very quickly, but this can also be the case whether it be a newsworthy topic, a revolution, police crimes, all these sorts of things, if become socially interested or topical, can equally have the same effect. So increasingly we're seeing individuals now competing with CNN, competing with Oprah, competing with historically controlled platforms or expensive platforms. One individual now has reach like never before. So we've got quite a broad demographic on today's session, and so I'm just going to recap for those who are, some are experienced, some are first-time engagers, some are wondering what it is. So what is social media? Well, the reality is it's different things to different people. But this is the spectrum, one of the many spectrums associated with social media. There are so many channels, and these may be related to social bookmarking. They could be wikis, they could be gaming, documents, content, video, interests, SMS, voice, forums. So as you can see, social media is not just about the tools, because you're spoilt by choice increasingly, and no sooner do these sorts of things get published then they're obsolete because a number come along. Some fall from the equation, some integrate, some are taken over, and a whole host of other things. But this is the choice available for individuals. They're merely distribution channels associated to brand in terms of feedback, crisis, support, product, marketing, participation, and also insight. A lot of these things are also measurable. So social media is the content of sharing, the content of distribution. It's something that, as I said earlier, was previously limited to television, radio, and print. Any individual can voice their opinion. Any individual can have their voice, their message, their content distributed around the world. So as you can appreciate, this can be the good, the bad, and the ugly. Some are qualified insights, some are just random rants and raves, some are just comical and entertaining and therefore shared with many. However, anybody can now participate in some degree or be involved in the distribution and sharing of information and content, regardless of what that topic or interest may be.